All right, so we're here with our wonderful Jace, who plays Marlow Eabeorne. So we're just going to jump right in, Mar, Jace, whatever, the same in difference.
Oh.
All right, so just give us a little bit of the background, like who is Mar, like age,
yeah.
physical appearance, class, race, all that stuff.
Yeah, okay, so Marlow Eabeorne, which I don't know if I've ever told you, last name is a reference to The Hobbit.
Really?
The shapeshifter, like bear man that come along.
Yes.
Bjorn. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. She is a blood hunter with the subclass Order of the Lycan, and now has one level in Rogue.
Sneaky.
She's like 5'9"-ish, with tan skin, yellowish eyes, long black hair with gray streaks, because I unintentionally Witcher-fied my character that's already based on a Witcher.
Love it.
She has her Order of the Lycan armor and her badge. She has kind of like slacks, knee-high boots, navy overcoat, like a scarf that's woven with platinum, and her black hat with like a red band around it because it's Somalia's hat.
Yep. Love it. Good. And she's a half elf, right? Yeah.
Half elf.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So thinking about Marlow's backstory, just kind of, like, you don't have to run through the whole backstory, but what are some of the key, like, formative events of their life pre-show?
Cool. So Mar grew up in the Veltlands with her mom and dad on a farm, and she was bitten by a werewolf at the age of 14.
As it happens.
And they didn't know if the bite would take until her first full moon, and it was really rough, and no one was hurt, but it was like a close call. So she ended up going to Manor Heath to live with Amalia and Eris, who were two other lycanthropes. And Amalia kind of like trained her and got her like to learn how to like do basic control, and tried to, convince her that this wasn't like the end of her life. And she was like, I don't know about that. And then Amalia and Eris were kidnapped like about like 4 or 5 years later, which she found out was the Haverleys.
It was.
So Mar set off on her own for like a decade to try to figure out like what happened and try to find them. She ended up in a temple of Suvenar, which is when she decided that was going to be her god, and the god of water and the moon and change and stuff. She doesn't worship it because it's the moon. It's because of the change thing. That's just irony, and because I thought it was funny.
I love it.
And then she ended up having a full moon in the Deep Wood, where she was found by the Order, and they were like, well, I mean, we're right here. And she was like, oh my fucking God. And so she joined the Order of the Lycan. And that's kind of her thing. Nice.
And we've got some great artwork. I'm going to say great on the first one because I drew that one. But the second
wonderful
artwork comes from our fantastic ace who plays Juridan. And this is Marlow after a fashion makeover.
Yeah. She had the little glow up.
Yep. Fantastic. Looking amazing.
Looking snazzy.
Yes. All right. So next question. So what do you think are Marlow's major or driving motivations in their life?
Yeah. She's definitely driven by like a sense of justice, I'd say. Like she has kind of like a very personal and specific moral code, which I think is not like exactly lawful or chaotic. Like I've got her like lawful neutral, but it's like lawful in the sense that she follows like her own sense of like the law. Because there have definitely been moments in the campaign where she's like agreeing with what the law is, and then sometimes it's like, oh no, fuck it, I'm gonna kill Lady Haverley inadvertently. She definitely wants to like seek out corruption is something that she's really fallen into, both like bureaucratic and then the Veil. And she's really quite loyal, and I think just wants to like serve and protect like other people, you know, because it's like she's got this curse, and so if she can use it for something good, then that's about, you know, the best she can do with the situation that she's in.
Do you think that's because, and do you think that's also a little bit of like that Amalia spirit coming through of like somebody?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think Amalia probably has had the biggest impact on Mars' philosophy and like moral compass.
Yeah. And Amalia is a very like, very isolating individual. Like she kicked out of her family and like kind of chose to live on her own as a ranger. Do you think Mars struggled to overcome that kind of isolating spirit?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, God, like Mars' first line in this campaign was like hyping herself up to talk to people.
Because you talked to what, like 5 people last year?
Yeah, and they were all in the Order, and it was required. It was just her job, you know? And I mean, I hate using this term, but she's kind of a lone wolf. And I think a lot of that comes from just spending a lot of time alone or around very few people. And it's something interesting because I don't know. I don't think Mars consciously trying to overcome that, but she like is. You know, she is coming out of her shell and developing these relationships with like the party and like various NPCs, and you know, I think it's been kind of a journey for her, and she's still certainly on it.
Oh yeah, of course. And it's been such a joy to watch that journey for her as we're going.
It's been really fun to play.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so you did a motivation. So what are the key things? I think you hit on these a little bit, but what are some of the things that hold Mar back, or what are her greatest fears?
Oh gosh. I mean, it was kind of the thing Yorian called out about her, is that she always relies on her lycanthropy, which is so funny because I didn't use it early in the campaign. I was like nerfing myself because I didn't want to pull it out in front of the party. And I think now she's kind of come to this place where she only sees herself of use to the group because of the lycanthropy and because she's a fighter, and doesn't really consider herself useful or helpful in any other sense. And you know, and I mean, I mentioned this before, but Mars got a deep fear of being vulnerable and opening up to people. And I think that was something that existed a little bit like before the lycanthropy even happened, but that just compounded it and made it so much worse. And especially after, you know, building these relationships with Amalia and Eris and then losing those. I mean, I think that is something she's really like is holding her back a lot from like connecting to the group and really like coming into herself fully. Yeah,
it's interesting because like this is the first group of people that don't share the curse that you've been spending a lot of time with. And I don't know if Mar feels connected to the Order because she also mistrusts the Order a lot.
Yeah, it's a very complicated relationship with the Order.
And like Callian, the leader of the Order, seems like at least not an Amalia standing, because nobody could ever take Amalia's space, but she does feel kind of like a comforting presence, but also a really challenging presence for her.
It's really, it's tough. I think, I mean, because Callian was the first kind of person who invested in Mar and cared about her since Amalia and Eris, so I think there is a sense of like, just like debt there, you know? And also, you know, I mean, it's hard because she's so fundamentally against the Order and Callian's beliefs and what they do. But she also has immense respect for Callien, for the person she is rather than what she does. And I mean, you and I talked about this in our session 0. Mm-hmm. It was like immediately when we were playing Mar and Callien, they had this like crazy, like really intense connection that I certainly didn't prepare for or see coming. And it kind of like changed a lot of the way I played Mar and thought about Mar and her relationship to the Order, because it's so much more complicated when she's not just like, oh, I hate everybody here and I'm pretending to hide that. It's like, no, she tries to hate everybody here and she can't quite do it. It's complicated.
As so many things are for Mar.
Nothing's simple in Mar's life. Right. Even if it could be, she overthinks it.
Yeah. All right. So as the campaign kind of progresses, like every character goes in with some goals. And I kind of think like, what were Mar's starting goals and maybe how those changed over the course of the campaign?
Oh, dude. I mean, Mar's goal since she was bitten has always been to cure the lycanthropy. And it's so hard because that, doesn't exist necessarily. And I think every other lycan in her life has like either come to terms with what that is or is proud of it and utilizes it and doesn't want to lose it.
Or made the choice to have it to start with. Yeah.
God. And so I think that's always been her goal. And because she wants to go home and because of what happened and why she had to leave, she does not consider herself able to go back home while she's still a werewolf.
Yeah, and it hasn't popped up a lot in the campaign, and I'm wondering how much of that is Mar just holding it close to the chest or choosing not to think about it, but we haven't thought about Mar's family who are not dead, or this isn't the standard D&D party where like, oh, my family's all dead. Like your parents are...
I made a choice. I tried really hard to avoid the trope of like having dead parents in D&D. Because I think it's just so much more interesting to give people like connections. And so that was something that I worked really hard on, is like, no, Mar had great relationships with her parents. They were, the most important people in her life. But I mean, it's been well over a decade since she's seen them.
And it was such a tragic... It's interesting. It was like they didn't die. It's almost like Mar did.
Yeah. I think Mar either considers her life ended at 14 or that she can never go back to the life she had until the lycanthropy is gone.
But, and there's there's like a rays of hope that maybe that's possible now. So.
Oh, holy shit. Yeah. I mean, it's so she's pretty focused on that. And then obviously, when the campaign started, now it's so she takes the fight against a priori and the Tide Order so seriously that, I was kind of considering like, okay, if Mar like just tomorrow, like cured her lycanthropy, would she stay with the party or would she immediately go back home? And I think there'd be a really big debate there because she's really invested in what they're doing and she wants to, take down this really corrupt system and she wants to protect Azalor and protect the dragon there. Like there's a lot going on for her in that sense. The building connections has actually created more complications, it almost seems, which is great. As it always does.
Yep. All right. So a little, let's see. I can't read my own handwriting. Oh, okay, good. So kind of that's like Mar as a person. So thinking about like specific moments of the campaign, like what do you think are Mar's favorite moments of the campaign or the most significant moments that kind of marked changes or transformations for them?
Oh, holy shit. the party learning about her lycanthropy and
Mm-hmm.
the night with Hattie and Skull.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the first big one for her. I think she thought the party was going to kick her out
Yeah.
as soon as they realized, and they didn't. And to, half of them, it wasn't even a big deal, because they are also beasts. And it wasn't in some sense or another. So they didn't see her any differently. And so that was kind of huge for her, especially Hattie and Skull. And that was the first time anybody had mentioned a cure and said there might be a way, this might be possible. One of Mar's least favorite moments, but certainly a huge fucking moment, was becoming the Sixth Ranger. Because she felt like she really couldn't say no to that, even though she very desperately wanted to.
Yeah.
But I think that's Mar's entire relationship with the Order, is thinking that she is in, like, if she ever says no to them or refuses them, that they'll just like fucking like kill her or like put her in jail or something like that, which may or may not be true, right? But that's what Mar believes.
Yeah, and that feeds, I think, Mar's like real mistrust of anybody who has zealotous ideas or
anytime Mar werewolfs out in front of somebody, it's always a thought in the back of her head. I mean, it was a huge deal for her she wouldn't have turned into a Lycan in front of Alyria if Source like wasn't in absolute peril and like going down repeatedly. She only turned in front of Yorian because it was like, no, we're fighting a, Chimera. We kind of have to here. What else? Finding Amalia. I mean, that's got to be like, obviously, that was huge. And also really hard because, you don't see someone for like a decade and then you come back and they're not the same. And Amalia's been through a lot of shit, and she's, same thing with Eris, man. It's like, that was also huge, but it was like really like bittersweet.
Yeah. Especially because like she's there for a moment and then she vanishes like she was never there to begin with.
Exactly. Mar going off on her own was a really big deal. Because, I mean, obviously so much fucking happened, but I think it also made her realize how much she does like being with the party. Like she missed them a lot. And that was, I think before she was really, she had that connection. Yeah. She was just holding herself back from acknowledging it. And that was kind of this is, we do, like, this is something really important to me. It was
interesting, like, when Mar was away from the party, how much they came up in conversation for her. Like, she's just going to bring them up. Like, we're going to talk about Abel and Source and come on.
Well, I mean, she has so few people in her life that, these people who like take care of her in some aspect and care about her and her well-being, like that's huge for Mar. What else? Nagindra visiting her in the dream, wielding the wave dancer. That's fucking that's revolutionary. That was crazy. And I guess the most recent thing was telling Kalyan about what Yorian was planning to do to the 9 houses.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice for Mar.
That was something I thought about a lot before doing it, because I was going back and forth on, would Mar do this? And I basically just said, like, I can't decide this on my own. It has to be like in the moment. If something happens, like what the gut reaction is. And it honestly was Jury that caused that. Well, because they had that fight that Mar took so fucking personally. Mar was really hurt by that. And it just made them realize, like, in that conversation where Yorian opened up to the group and told them everything, Mar felt like she was the only person who was never even going to consider it.
Yeah.
Because everybody else was talking about like, well, if we don't kill anyone, maybe it's fine. And Mar was like, no, you're gonna destroy the infrastructure. You're gonna like get like the lower classes punished. Like she was seeing stuff in this that she felt like no one else was seeing.
Yeah.
And she basically just realized in that conversation, like she thought that Jury was not going to take her seriously about this. And that Jury had this loyalty to Yorian that she unfortunately understands, because it's a lot of it parallels her relationship with Kalyan.
Yeah.
And she just kind of, it was a gut impulse.
Yeah.
And she went through with it.
And then siding with Bolton in the ensuing kind of fights and conflicts. Like,
well, that was another thing. I mean, that's got to be one of the hardest things Mar's ever done, is like be in an interrogation representing not only herself but the group, and being the one who could bail them out of that situation. And that was, I mean, Mar was having a panic attack the whole time. Like, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Like my heart was racing. But she got through it, man. Like, and she played it pretty damn well.
Yeah. It's an interesting, like, you guys, I mean, there's jokes about Kaimana being the leader of the ticket takers, but in so many ways, like, both because probably the oldest and wisest member, but also just the one with the most just experience with dealing with anything. Mar really stepped up in that moment as kind of yeah.
Well, she was forced to. Yep. I mean, Bolton made her be responsible for the group. That happened in Anavir too. Yep. I mean, she was representing the whole party at every moment. And so it's like, no, if she failed in that fight, now everybody's going to think differently of the ticket takers, and just little things like that. You know, if she got caught raiding Whistleton's place, now the Adventurers Guild has robbed a patrician.
Yep.
So it's like, it's a big deal for her, because I don't think she's ever, I mean, she doesn't want the Order to fucking come after her, but at the same time, she, I think, cares a lot more about how she represents the ticket takers over how she represents the Order.
Nice. Interesting. All right. So there's two more like of the general questions. And so we're going to go through each of the ticket takers and just its general, like, what is Mar's feelings, reactions, thoughts. It can be as whatever as you like. So we'll start, I guess we'll go alphabetical order. We'll start with Abel.
Oh, Abel. She still kind of worries that Abel doesn't trust her because of the lycanthropy.
Yeah.
Because he was the one who was really vocal about not trusting her. And it's funny because what he was really saying was he didn't trust the Order, but she took it so personally.
Yeah.
And it was because he was saying all her worst fears, you know? It's like he was voicing like, well, what if, you don't have control? And what if the Order is secretly evil and all this stuff that she does worry about? And, Mar sees Abel as like a little brother figure almost. Well, yeah. I mean, because it's like his dad asked her to watch out for him. And, the way Alyria talks about him is so, like, obviously she jokes around that, like, and they, have this like little brother sister combative relationship, but like she loves Abel, you know. So I she's really come around with Abel, and Abel's the one who, their views most often align in the party.
Yeah,
they're the ones who usually are trying to be somewhat more law-abiding than everybody else, which is fun. Abel's the one she asked permission from before calling Kalyan, and there was a reason for that.
Yeah, That was a big moment. And I think like, the moment when you saw the Rakshasa and saw like the fear from Abel, I think that kind of revealed more about.
It really clicked in Mar's head. Well, it's the thing is like, she's never resented Abel.
Yeah.
For that. It's always been, she understood where he was coming from. She still worries that he thinks about her like that, but she is seeing him like start to come around and really start to like trust her and open up to her about like what he's worried about and stuff. Yeah.
My favorite constant interactions and like little inside joke about Abel and Mar is anytime Mar's at like 10 hit points, Abel's like, I could do this big spell, and Mar's like, just do it. I can take it.
So part of that is because I think it's extremely funny.
Yeah.
And it's a really good joke. But another part of that is, Mar's ready to take the hits at all times if it means the party gets out of it. I don't want to spoil anything. Mar was fully ready to lay down their life for Jury in that fight.
Yeah. It was a beautiful moment. Yeah.
It was a cool moment. Yeah. The fallout of that will be extremely.
I can't. Yeah. No. Whatever is going to happen in that episode is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So up next is Kaimana.
Oh my God, she fucking loves them.
Yeah.
I think like everybody did in the beginning was like, oh, what the fuck is this guy's deal?
Yeah.
Like what? Like, and not really taking him seriously.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, Kaimana is the one that helped her start to open up. And he thinks so highly of her and is like in just such an honest way. You know what I mean? Like he's so coming to her about the Abel issue and being there for her on like the full moon. I mean, she feels almost motherly towards Kaimana. I mean, she like has swaddled him up while he's drunk like 2 times.
Yeah.
No, she feels this need to like really protect the whole group, but like especially Kaimana.
Yeah. Because he is so seemingly young. It's hard to tell exactly how old he is. The moment that was my favorite moment with Kaimana and Mar was him choosing to turn into a wolf and go with you. And at the time Mar was like not thrilled about it. She was already having a bad night and was thought he was almost like hitting her or something like that, but it meant so much for him to be there for that kind of ritual. All right, and then the other founding member, Soris is the one I think she understands the best, because their moralities align a lot, I think, in terms of like I think this was the Haverly thing, especially. Like, she trusts Soris out of anyone to be the one to cross the line when it needs to be crossed in a way that she does not see that coming from Abel or Kaimana. And not in a way where she's like, oh, they're naive or they don't understand. It's just Soris is the one who's constantly kind of proven that, like, he's ready to do what it takes, I mean, that Haverly moment, I think, was the strongest kind of agreement between Mar and Soris of like, no, we'll be the ones to do this. And we're not going to talk to the others about it. We know what we've done, and that's it. It's almost like the mother and father making a decision that the kids don't need to know about.
For sure.
But there's also been a lot of like interesting tension between Mar and Soris when it comes to like bigger plans, or Soris is much more spontaneous problem solving.
Well, Mar's a planner more than an improviser. I mean, she'll do, she runs on instinct in the moment for sure. And she obviously has learned with the group that plans usually fall apart. But yeah, she thinks Soros is a little reckless. Yeah, so it's been fun to see her react to some of Soros's plans. Yeah. I think the moment where that came out the strongest was Soros going along with Yorian's whole thing. Yeah. And her being like, the fuck not? Why are we even considering this? Like,
yeah. And it's interesting. I can't wait to talk to Rob and get his insight on Soros's actual morality, because it seems wishy-washy, but then there also seems to be very strict rules, and it's very weird.
Yeah, it's very weird. Yeah.
Yeah. And we've already done a little talking about Jury because they are such an important relationship. But anything else you want to add about Jury?
Jury and Mar are foils for each other. Yeah. Ace and I have talked about it. It is crazy that they created this character without knowing anything about Mar and how similar they fucking are without seeing it in each other. Yeah. I mean, at first she didn't trust Jury for shit, because they were coming after what Vox Populi had done at the Adventurers Academy. And so that lost pretty much all her respect for Vox Populi. Yeah. And, you know, the way Jury talked about Vox Populi reminded her of the way, like, people talked about the Order, you know? And she was like, Mar's very, I've said this before, Mar's very against like organized groups. Yeah. Like in that way. Because she's very convinced that like people will often fall into these like mentalities where they just all think the same way and don't question each other and will become like corrupted in their own way, even if they want to fight corruption. She started to trust them more in Feldspar. With seeing them in Armand's like lab and stuff like that. That's where, you know, she kind of was like, okay, no, they're looking out for the party. They're putting themselves out there. That fight, as I mentioned, really hurt her. I guess she just thinks that like Jury means well, but it's funny because Jury is always the one talking about like, you know, Abel not having the bigger picture and not knowing what the world is like. And Mar's like, you don't fucking know what the world is like. Yeah.
Or she's seeing the world, or they're seeing the world from such a shade, or through such a lens from their Vox Populi mentality. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the big turning point for Mar with Jury is, when they got between Bolton and Yorian, because in the moment Mar was just like resigned and like exasperated, but was like, I finally get you, because you're someone who will protect your loved ones at all costs. Yeah. And that's you know, Mar really respects that. And that was the moment, you know, they decided like, no, Jury is worth saving and Jury is worth protecting.
We didn't get the reaction, but we'll see it in the next episode.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Jury has an even deeper connection to Marlow.
I've thought a lot about that, and I don't want to necessarily spoil anything.
Because we'll definitely get to it. Yeah.
Well, it's another thing where it's like, I think Mar is going to be extremely confused and conflicted about how she feels about this and how she's going to deal with this. Yeah. Because it's like one of those things where, you know, two people from two completely different points in your life now have this separate relationship that has absolutely nothing to do with you and like breaks your brain. You know?
Yeah. And then, but I wonder if that gives, I mean, it might be for Jace more than for Mar, like an understanding a little bit more of Jury, to find out that so much of their character has been just a mask or a show.
Yeah. And I Yeah, and I mean, I think the way Ace has played this character is so masterful for that reveal being such a surprise, but looking back on it, making so much fucking sense.
Yep.
I'm really excited to see what happens. I think a lot of it will be how Jury explains this.
Yeah.
But I think we'll see.
Yeah, I can't wait to see, like, because you said that Mar and Jury are foils of each other. Like the aspect of Mar's identity that she wants to keep hidden from everybody, and then there's clearly also this other aspect of Juridan's character that they want to keep hidden from everyone. And
yeah,
that's interesting. It's a lot of fun. All right,
it's really interesting.
So then the last big question is, so we already know like the major players in Mar's life that are not ticket takers.
Yeah.
We got Callian and Amalia and Eris. Who have been Mar's other favorite NPC interactions?
Alyria. I mean, I think at first Mar was like, oh, Jesus Christ, fucking royalty. Because, I mean, before that, and she had not interacted with people like that, and not rich people, not people with like power like that. And it was huge for her. And I mean, Alyria is just so, I think what won her respect with Alyria is the way that she was so willing to listen and learn about what the world's like, even though she was so sheltered.
Yeah.
Through no fault of her own. No, I mean, she really wants Alyria to be safe and okay. And I think especially seeing what she deals with in Anarvir, she's really looking out for Alyria in like a little sister way, I think,
Nice. All right, so for our last little round, we're going to do just kind of a quick run through, and I'm going to ask you brief, and you can give as brief a response as possible, or as you'd like to each one. All right, so thinking about Mar's character and getting into Mar's brain, what is Mar's favorite food? Oh, God.
She's a vegetarian. What would it be? Probably like a good like roasted vegetable kind of situation.
Good. Favorite color?
Ooh, blue.
Blue. If they had attended formal school, what would be their best subject in school?
History.
History. What do they do in their free time or their hobbies?
Journaling and sketching.
Nice. Favorite drink?
The whiskey.
Perfect. And then finally, is Mar open to romance?
Yes.
I love it.
It's a really fun thing where I think if you asked Mar that question, it would be a very different answer.
Yeah.
But I did not intend for this at all, man, until it started happening without my control. Mar's got some romantic tension with a couple of NPCs, which is really fun to play.
It's so interesting. Like, Mar seems to almost stumble into those moments, like, oh, this is happening.
Well, and it's fun because the ones she stumbles into that we've seen are very, like, it's an easy way to be vulnerable without actually being vulnerable, right? Because it's just one night, and and it's fun, and everybody's on the same page, and it doesn't really have to mean anything. Versus like being vulnerable and committing to something is like very, very different. So I think it's been fun, because there's really like one main NPC that I can talk about, or I can keep a secret. I don't know. Or you can guess. I don't know. It's up to you.
I want to know. I don't know if I'll put it in the video or not.
It's Callian.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's Callian. It's extremely complicated, but I think, she's so fucking charismatic, man. Like, upsettingly so.
Yeah.
And it's so hard because intellectually, she doesn't trust Callian. She doesn't trust the Order. She thinks Callian is really suspicious, has ulterior motives, is doing shit behind the scenes that she's not talking Mar or maybe anyone about. But she trusts Callien anyway. I was watching back old episodes because I was like, how much have I told Callien? I don't feel like I've told her that much. I told her so fucking much. I told her all about a priori, all about the Tide Warders. I mentioned the fact that we were there for Haverly's death. Yep. Like crazy shit. I mean, the Yorian thing, like that's a lot. Yeah. And so it's fun. And again, I think this is something that Mar is not conscious of and is actively suppressing this a lot. Yeah. But she also, and again, you don't have to answer this. She feels like Callien might be romantically interested and is a little bit like, because there's just a lot of tension when they
there's that night in Hightower, God no.
Yeah, no, Jesus. And it's I think it's one of those things where like Mar's desperate for affection. Yeah. And like and so that's a lot to process, but it's like she's had moments, like I think mostly sometimes on like phone calls it shows, or like when she drunk dialed Callien, or when she was talking to Callien at the Order, like there was very much some moments where they were like being like very intimate in how they talk to each other. And she's always like, yeah, Callien likes me. I'm Callien's favorite. But that's because that she's saying that because she is pretty fucking like, she knows on some level, and she doesn't want to admit it because admitting it means that she has to grapple with her own feelings. Yeah. But she's worried about it. And I think part of it too is it's easier for Mar to be like, oh, Callien's romantically interested in me versus like Callien wants something from me. Like, and I don't know what it is.
That was always my fear with Mar and Callien was I was like, is she going to think of Callien as somebody who's using her or as somebody who actually cares about her? And it's interesting how that's kind of played out for Mar.
It's kind of one of those things where it's like both can coexist. Yeah. You know?
Just for side whatever, there's general like NPCs. Sometimes I usually like have somebody that's like a touchstone in other medium to kind of guide me. So for instance, like Iris Corday, her touchstone is Gelcris Falconer from Altered Carbon. That Renee, and she's like,
it's not gonna click.
It's Renee Ellis Goldsberry who plays the character.
Incredible.
But she's like this like super revolutionary, like wants to revolutionize the world type thing. But did you watch The Nevers? Okay. Because that's all right. The main character
I don't watch TV.
The main character from The Nevers is my Callien touchstone because she's like this like
I'll have to look into it.
Super serious, but like cares so much about everybody around her, but has a very distinct like, this is my goal and I'm gonna do whatever, and I'm not worried about getting my hands dirty to make it happen. And
it's one of those things, man. Like if you had chosen to play Callien as just a leader or just the head of the Order or whatever, it would be a lot simpler. But she's not. She's a lot more than that. And Mar's like, I'm not going to process this, I think.
Yeah. I like to make them complicated.
I know you do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jace. It's always great and fun to talk about Mar. I always love our like post-session, like, how's Mar doing?
How's Mar doing? It's always a lot. Yeah. It's always a lot.
And I'm sure going forward, it's only going to be more. Because after Feldspar is Anarvir, and God knows what will be in store for you all there.
She's got some shit to follow up on in Anarvir. Because because Mar was already going to be like, no, I have to go visit Amalia. And now it's, we have to go visit Amalia. And we're probably going to be forced to visit Amalia. And that'll be really interesting. She set up that shit with Finn to figure out Yorian, or not Yorian.
Yusef,
Yusef.
Yeah.
Too many too many Y names.
Sorry,
Josh.
Ronnie lectures me about the number of times I have A names, because it's a lot, and Y names, and it's like, I'm sorry.
It's Yorian, Yusef, and Uriel that always fuck me up.
Yeah.
It's those three.
Well, and Uriel's a U, but it sounds like a Y.
Well, not
so
the
it's
way
like,
I've written it.
Yeah.
So in my head, it's always going to be a Y.
Yeah, Uriel.
I'll don't cut this out. But I've broken the code on a priori. Okay. I understand. I know every single person at a priori but one person. I think that's because we haven't even met them.
Okay.
But I understand. I know a priori.
Do you know?
I can list it out right.
Do you know their? Okay, so you know their ranks. So you know who the king is.
I know who the king is. I know who the queen is.
Yeah.
It's the watcher. It's whatever her name is.
Yeah.
The bishop is Yusef.
Okay.
The knight we don't know.
Okay.
But I was thinking about it because I was thinking with Ace about like, well, what would the knight mean in chess? And I was thinking about who else is a priori, because it was Haverly was the towers,
right?
Towers.
Mm-hmm.
But Whistleton replaced that if Eris is to be trusted.
Yeah.
And
there's also more than one tower in chess, so yeah.
Fuck. Well, I think there are multiple patricians. R.I.P. Mr. Windsor. He's gonna be investigated. Yeah, and the knight. If there's not multiple knights, but I was thinking about what does this group not have, and this group doesn't have anybody like military or anybody with like physical power or like strength in numbers. Like these are all like intellectual people or people with money or people with like status. There's not anyone with like the gun power or you know something to back this up, which if Armand's plan is to really like fucking take over Alyria, you gotta have somebody like that on the side. So we'll see. Yeah and you definitely haven't met everybody yet, but we'll see. All right, we'll see how that shakes out. And then I think pawns are just whoever the fuck. Yeah, because you've met a couple pawn, or you met at least one pawn. So Soren, Sora, it's just whoever they want to go sacrifice for the cause. So, probably, yeah. With the hopes of one day becoming the queen. So, cool. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jace. I'm glad we got to talk, and you're my first. And so I've got Jordan or Ace today. Doing tonight, and then Ronnie's going to do his tomorrow, and then Rob I haven't scheduled Atwoods, but nice. Yep. All right, well, have a great rest of your Saturday, and we'll play next week and see where all this shakes out.